Hey guys, we have good news. Apparently, the NBA is coming back after all. There will be a 2020 playoffs and a champion will ultimately be crowned. Also, they are inviting back a few non-playoff teams to compete in a sort of play-in regular season finale. And my favorite team, the Phoenix Suns, just barely made it in. I do not think they will get into the postseason, but it is cool that they have gone that far. This got me thinking ahead to next season, where they can hopefully improve even more and possibly make the playoffs for the first time in a decade. Yes, a decade. I was in junior high way back then. Most people around the NBA YouTube space do not have many nice things to say about the Phoenix Suns, and a lot of that is justified. The owner, Robert Sarver, is awful and needs to sell the team to somebody who actually gives a darn. And the previous general manager, Ryan McDonough, ran the team into the ground before James Jones recently salvaged what he could with the poor roster he inherited. In 2020, the Suns played below 500 basketball for the 9th time in 10 years, but have improved enough to potentially hit the 30-game plateau for the first time since 2015. This is laughable compared to 90% of the league. Really, only the Sacramento Kings have been close to as bad during this span. But like I said, things are looking up. The young core of this team looks set and is extremely promising. We have the face of the franchise, Devin Booker, at 23 years old, locked up for the next 4 years. The man in the middle, number 1 overall pick DeAndre Ayton at 21, with 2 years left on his rookie deal, and an electrifying third option, Kelly Oubre at 24 years old, but with only 1 year left on his contract. Playing alongside these guys are more youth and a couple veterans. Ricky Rubio is a terrific playmaker and defender who deserves more credit. He is signed for the next 2 years. And Frank Kaminsky is currently signed for 1 more season for cheap. Then Mikal Bridges is a good 3-and-D guy, locked in for 2 more years. Last year's lottery pick Cameron Johnson has 3 more years. Then a couple young guards in Ty Jerome and Jalen LeCue are also still locked in for 3 more years. They also technically have the young point guard Eli Okobo signed, but to a non-guaranteed deal, which I personally think they need to drop or throw into a trade. And the last roster piece technically is Sheik Diallo, who has a team option next year, and I say let him go. Okay, so if all that happens, this would leave the Suns with 9 men under contract, adding up to a little under $90 million in the current 2021 payout. The team spent about $120 million on players this past season, so I think it is safe to assume they will be close to this again, meaning they have about $30 million to use on free agents. But we do have to throw in an asterisk, because they do have 1 lottery pick coming this October in the draft, so depending on where this falls, they will be signing this guy to somewhere between 3 and about 10 million. This could be a third of the team's remaining cap space. But given who sits at the top of this year's draft, I am not sure they will even want their selection. So it would not shock me to see them opt to trade the pick. So now that the stage has been set, I am going to run through the top 5 possible free agent routes the team could take this summer. I will explain which scenarios are the most realistic, as well as explain how well I imagine each team doing. What I have done is gone ahead and documented every noteworthy free agent who I realistically believe the Suns could bring in next season. You will notice a couple of big names were left off my list here. Brandon Ingram and Anthony Davis are intentionally ignored since these 2 guys are going to fetch for well above $30 million a year, which the Suns simply cannot do without some drastic roster moves that I do not foresee occurring. Then I went ahead and created a complicated chart of how many of each players in each category they could sign given contract configurations. It may seem complicated, but the goal here was to be as realistic as possible, fill the team's needs, and provide as much of a first 5 punch and depth as they could with about $30 million and 3 to 5 roster spots available. Now, let's get into my top 5. Number 5, the Suns land Davis Bertans and Derek Favors, along with either Jeremy Lin or DJ Augustin, and either Dwight Howard or Joakim Noah. It is obvious the Suns have a major hole in the power forward position. Of course, they could opt for 4 positions of small ball, but I believe having at least one bully along with one sharpshooting 4 is the better option. No offense to Kaminsky, but he falls short in both roles. I genuinely believe Bertans and Favors are a couple of the best sleeper free agents available. Both bring something impactful to winning teams, and their niche with the Suns could push the team into the playoffs. Also, either Lin or Augustine would be a solid big minutes backup point guard considering Ty Jerome has a ways to go, and either Howard or Noah will get maybe 15 minutes a night as the second option big. The other plus to this combination of players is if a small ball lineup is absolutely necessary. Favors and Kaminsky could fill in at the 5. Interestingly, I want to point out the most unlikely signing here is probably Dwight Howard. It seems to me he either wants to be the number 1 option or play a backup role in a championship chasing team. Neither of these two look very realistic next year with the Suns. So if he plays hard to get for some reason and Noah also does not sign, maybe they could bring in Nerlens Noel or Myers Leonard. Number 4, the reunion team as I like to call it. I have the Suns bringing back Goran Dragic for his 3rd stint in Arizona, along with Michael Beasley for his 2nd stint, and one of those 4 previously mentioned centers. This roster configuration leaves the 4 slot weak, but honestly that could be perfectly okay. Beasley is capable of guarding pretty much all 5 positions, create his own shot, and stretch the floor. And Dragic is a 6th Man of the Year candidate and could produce a ton as an efficient backup point guard. I would love to see these 2 guys return to Phoenix, but honestly, I do not find this very realistic. Dragic does not like Robert Sarver, and I definitely understand why. And Beasley has had a hard time getting any NBA team to stick with him. In NBA 2K, this works flawlessly every time, but in reality, I doubt it. Number 3, the Suns bring in Montrezl Harrell and one of those 2 low-level backup point guards and 2 centers. I love Harrell's fit in the NBA. He is a monster on offense, capable of attacking and finishing over just about any defensive big, but his weakness with the Suns would be his fit alongside DeAndre Ayton. Since neither of these 2 guys stretch the floor very much, but maybe these 2 could start and then stagger, keeping one always on. This way the Suns can keep up with small lineups as well as go huge when needed. However, my optimism runs thin with this signing. Harrell has a great thing going in LA, and they and he may want to remain. Number 2, the Suns bring in their draft pick from a long time ago, Bogdan Bogdanovic, along with a point guard and 2 centers. Bogdanovic is the jack of all trades, and I think every championship chasing team is going to go after him this summer. He can play point guard and orchestrate an offense, as well as be a high volume scorer when called upon. Also, his size helps him play 3 positions, which would be immensely impactful, filling in behind Rubio, Booker, and Oubre. This is a very real possibility considering he'll be coming off a tense tenure wasting away on the bench in Sacramento. The promise of actually competing for a playoff spot and making better money, I think could sway him here. And number 1, the free agent signing that I believe puts the Suns over the top and into the playoffs most clearly is Danilo Gallinari, along with a point guard and a center. Gallo is a 20+ per game shooter with great size. He can create his own or roll off screens for dagger long-range bombs. He is pretty much the best version of Frank Kaminsky the Suns could ask for. I know 100% he would be enough to put the Suns in the playoffs. The first 5 would have 4 guys capable of averaging 20 a game with a great perimeter defender, a great interior defender, and a great point guard. I also believe there is a very real possibility he comes to Arizona. He is not a big ticket name, and his contract value outweighs how much big markets would give him. This team would be a dream come true in my eyes. So there you guys have it. 5 possible avenues which I think the Phoenix Suns should choose from for the summer of 2020. However, we have not brought up the other option, the possibilities of trades. For that topic, subscribe and stay tuned for part 2 of this mini saga. Please comment which of these signings you guys like the best, or a trade you think the Suns should make. Like the video because it helps me sleep at night, and I will see you all next time.